we'll start to look now at equations. So these will be problems to solve. We will try and find out what values of our variables satisfy the equation. So we'll start with the simplest possible examples. We'll look at linear equations, or equations involving degree 1 polynomials. So what do these look like? Well, they look like y equals ax plus b. So recall this is a degree 1 polynomial. So the goal is to compute values of x given y and vice versa. Now here, if I'm given values of x, it's very easy to find y, because I've written it as y equals something. A more tricky problem is given y, find values of x. So this is typically what you would do in this type of situation. So just kind of a toy example. I mean, this is about as straightforward as it gets, but it's good to look at. So solve for x. 2 equals 4x minus 3. So to put this in the context of what we just saw, we could write this as y equals 4x minus 3. And then the question is solve for y, or solve for x, when y equals 2. So 2 equals 4x minus 3. So how do we do this? Well, we'll try to get x by itself. And we do that by first putting the 3 on the other side. So this is equivalent to 5 equals 4x. And then I divide both sides by 4 to get 5 divided by 4 equals x. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Now we just saw an equation where I have an equal sign between the two quantities. We can also look at an inequality. So in this case, I don't just want the case when they're equal, I also want the case when one is less or greater than the other. So how do we represent this? So here we would say something like y is less than or equal to mx plus b. So for example, y is less than or equal to 2x plus 1. Or y is greater than or equal to negative x minus 7. Okay? So these inequalities can be solved similarly. Okay? And I'll just make a remark that we don't necessarily have to have this equals there, okay? We can use strict greater than or less than. So the less than or greater than are strict, and then the inequalities would be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So the only difference is that for the strict inequalities, I don't include the case in which they're equal. For the generic inequalities, I include the case when they're equal. Okay, so how do we think of this geometrically? We can think of this as essentially saying take a line in the plane and then look at all points on one side or the other of the line. So if this was the line in question, then the solution to the inequality would be something like the half plane above it or below it, and depending on the direction of the inequality, you'll have either above or below the plane. So let's look at a little example. So I have 3x minus 3 less than or equal to 1. So I'll show how to solve this in two different ways. I'll first show the purely algebraic way, where we just try to solve for x, which is, I think, important. This is a good way to do it. But it doesn't tell the whole story, in my opinion. It's also very helpful to think about this in a geometric way. So 3x minus 3 less than or equal to 1 tells me that 3x is less than or equal to 4. So x is less than or equal to 4/3. So that's fine, not too difficult. But let's try and imagine this as a geometry problem. So I'll replace this with 3x minus 3 is less than or equal to y. And I'll look at the picture for this. So let's do a little sketch. Whenever you do these sketches, it's not always important to be incredibly precise. We're not putting something in the Louvre. We're just going to get a rough idea of what's going on. So we'll start by plotting the line y equals 3x minus 3. So I know it hits the y-axis at -3 and then has a slope of 3. So it goes like this. So this line here is a sketch of y equals 3x minus 3. So what is this inequality? Well, I want y to be greater than or equal to 3x minus 3. So I should be above this line. So I'm going to shade this region here. So everything up here is this inequality. Okay? So it's helpful, I think, to think about solving inequalities in sort of the straightforward algebraic way, but also thinking about what it would mean if I wanted to think a bit more generally. If I wanted to think of it as this geometric problem. Well, a linear inequality just defines a region in the plane. So I plot the line, and then I look at one side of the line or the other, depending on the inequality direction.